going to be one of the three chapters that we're doing this week. So, it's talking about diet planning and things like that, but really it's more about the food first principle, supplements as a secondary component, which, I mean, in all honesty, it should be that way anyway. You want to be able to go whole foods first before that's why it's called a supplement. So, let's rock and roll through this, and we'll be able to maneuver through the rest of the week. So, first things first. Obviously, through calculations that we did in week one and going through week two and everything like that, we know that an active person just in general needs more calories. Okay, it's pretty straightforward, simply because they need to be able to replenish what they've, basically just burned off. All right. So, that's part of that process there. Now, there are some other times where, maybe you're going to need differentiation between more or less. And one of the examples they use there is off season. Well, off season really depends on what it is that you're trying to achieve. Are you trying to gain more muscle mass? Are you trying to get stronger? Are you trying to get quicker? So all of those things can create a different dietary approach, and how you don't want to gain too much weight. You don't want to gain too much overall fat, things like that. So you just got to figure that out. And then, are you going to be going into that realm of, higher volume? Well, higher volume means more calories that are needed, because it's just more expenditure that you're having to deal with all the time. All right. So when we get into the next couple of slides, it's going to explain about how many kcals per kilogram that you should really be taking in, obviously dependent upon how much you weigh. But what they're saying here is what is not advisable for somebody who is active is to be below 30 kcals per kilogram. So again, like Carissa said in her video, figure it out, weight divided by 2.2. Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, so here's some examples here. I'll let you go through each one of these. There's two different slides here, with the sedentary, with a moderate intensity, which is, what they say is 3 to 5 days per week, or low intensity, short duration training. All right, it gives you the examples there, and it tells you male, female, what you might want to be getting into. Okay, so again, 30, 31, 35, 38, 37, 41. So you can see that there, depending upon what you're doing, it's going to cause you to be able to, change up your expenditure. Your expenditure habits occur. Okay, so and then on the next page, it goes a little bit more into the more deeper, more caloric needed, types of things. Okay, so again, this is for energy purposes here. So it's like, oh, well, if I see my energy expenditure is this amount, depending upon what I'm doing, well, then I know that I'm probably going to have to find a way to replenish that in some way and not go into a deficit, and either stay neutral or go beyond that, depending upon what the goal is. Okay, so what are they saying here? Now, this is if you were to do the whole periodization cycle of what a person's doing, because there's your preparation, the top part here, there's your preparation up here. Okay, then you also have your competition. Whoops, I don't want to format anything here. There's your preparation, there's your competition in season phase, and then there's your transition phase, which is basically, like it says here, your active recovery. Well, look at the different needs. In your general training for your preparation, you're about, it's giving you about 40 kcals per kilogram per day. Now, if you look here, when you get into your specific training, the requirement is going to be a little bit deeper, 44 kcals per kilogram per day. And then during race season, to make sure you're getting adequate nutrition, it goes back down to 40. And then your off season, because you're not doing anything, I shouldn't say you're not doing anything. You're doing very minimal stuff, but again, it's active recovery. So your requirements are not going to be needed, not going to be as much needed as it would be if it was in your preparation or your true training to lead up to your competitive season. Okay, but again, this can help with avoiding unnecessary weight or even gaining unnecessary fat amounts. Okay, so just kind of look at those. These are just examples, but really, what are we saying here? We want to be in these ranges here, depending upon where it is that we're training for. Okay, so there are some guidelines here. One of the things that a little bit different is that these guidelines are kind of pretty standard for the most part, but they can change if you go back, like for example here, carbohydrates. A typical athlete consumes about 6 grams per kilogram per day. Well, that can change, and if you go, I think it's chapter 4, if you go back into chapter 4 of the book, you'll see that these ranges vary greatly, but again, it depends on what the person is doing, okay? But this 6 is kind of a standard, not a standard, it's more of a more typical, all right, for that person. Now, that's if they're an athlete that's training fairly hard. Now, protein-wise, especially for strength-based athletes, it could range anywhere from 1.2 to 1.7 for strength. Now, typically for, like an endurance base, it's like 1.2 to 1.4. Okay, so you'd fit, that's, you get your protein amount there, you get your carbohydrate amount up top here. Okay, and then what you do, to get kind of like this basis for calories is you would take those two numbers, figure out what it is that you weigh, because again, it's going by kilograms. So you take what you weigh and you figure it out, based on what the requirements are, and then you find out how many calories those are, what you would need for overall calories. Remember, if we went back to these two charts here, where is it that we need to get our calories, how much do we need? And then you take these two numbers, and then you subtract them out of that total, and it'll give you how much fat you would do. So it's really not that hard, so what they do is on the next page, though, they give you like this breakdown of how everything works. Excuse me. And in that 6, gram per kilogram for carbs, 1.2 grams per kilograms for protein, and then it works out to be about 1 gram per kilogram for fat. Okay, so on the next page, if you look, they kind of break everything down for you. They find out how this person, this is a 135 pound, so not very heavy, individual, okay, non-pregnant female. Figure out there's their kilogram weight up top here, and the basis for this was they said that this person needs about 2,500 calories. Now that's a pretty, it's a good way to round, because it's it's an easier way to round, because you're able to figure out your calories here or there. Now there's a little bit of a trick to this. We'll talk about it at the end. Now when you look for about 40.7 kcals per kilogram, so we're saying that this person here, as a female, is working probably in these two realms right here, the two highlighted realms. Either rigorous or extremely rigorous based on what the expenditure is. Okay, so pretty decent amount, especially for a 135 pound female. So there's the requirements. All right, there's the protein requirement, there's the carbohydrate requirement. All right, and those are going to be able to guide you through the next part. So what do you got to do? Well, we said that it's, we need to know the kilogram weight of a person. So we know for the first step here, carbohydrates, we said that this person is going to be about 6 grams per kilogram. Well, 61.4 kilograms, what they weigh, multiply it by 6, and that gives you 368 grams of carbs. And then multiply that by 4 kcals, because we know that's how many kcals are in each gram of carbs, gives you about 1,472 calories. Same thing for protein. We said here, up top, 1.2 grams per kilogram. Take this person, 61.4 kilograms, multiply it by 1.2, gives you 74 grams of protein. Multiply this all out by 4, and it gives you almost 300, so 296 kcals. And then what you would do to figure, they give you the one gram. So there's a couple different things here. This is what they do. They say that, okay, well, if we say 1 gram per kilogram for fat, that's okay, but there's another way to do it, and I'll show you that in a second. So what we're saying here is that with fat, if you're going to do 1 gram per kilogram, it's basically 61 grams of fat, because it's exactly what the person's body weight is. Multiply that by 9, because remember, 4 and 4 for carbs and proteins, 9 for fat, gives you 549. Add all of those calories together, gives you 2317, with a discretionary amount, which means that basically if you went over on one of, on your calories a little bit in terms of these, the 368, the 74, and the 61, then that means that you have 183 calories that are kind of like disposable. Okay, so there's a couple other ways that you can do this too, and I'm going to put it down here on the bottom, and it's probably, let's just make sure we format this correctly, just so that we don't lose sight of everything. Oh, okay, it should be there. So what we're looking at here is if we were to take, there we go. Okay, it's there. So if we were to take the 1472 from your carbohydrates and add that to your protein amount, which was 296, that gives you, of course I didn't figure this out in my head, but that gives you 1472 plus 296 gives you 1,768 calories. Now that's just from carbs and protein. What you could then do is the next step is take the 2,500 to make this even and subtract that 1,768 from it, and that gives you 732 calories left over, but those are going to be for fat. So how do you figure out the calories for fat? You just take that number and you divide it by 9, because we know that, and that gives you approximately 81 grams of fat. Now you can do it that way, but that can sometimes will overload you on the fat amount. I mean, for a person who weighs 61 kilos, you know, I don't think that 81 grams of fat is going to be the correct. I don't think that's going to be the right amount. That might be a little bit too much. But that's another way that you can do it. And I would rather see people do it this way. But the reason why I kind of think this is a little bit off in this calculation for fat, 81 grams, is because I think that this number is a little bit too low. But again, this is a personal opinion. I think that this person, you know, because they're taking into account grams per kilogram and not grams per pound, you know, kind of throws things off a little bit. So, you know, there's ways that you can determine protein a little bit better. I just, again, feel like this is a little bit low, so that's going to kind of skew this 81 grams of fat a little bit. But again, it's all with a grain of salt. So that's really how you figure everything out. So I'm just going to erase this. You'll be, if you went back and watched it and replayed it, it'll show. But I'm just going to erase that simply because I don't want you to get the confusion. But what we're saying here is you have 183 kcals. If you take 183 and divide it by 4, what that means is that you have 183 divided by 4 gives you about 46 grams of either carbs or protein. Because remember, this is disposable, and they're both 4, you know, they're both 4 kcals here. So that means that you have 46 grams to kind of play with. Well, you could take that 183 and you could either drop it, some of it back into, I mean, what I would really do with this is I would say, oh, I got 46. Let's make this an even 400. Okay, which means that I had to add 32 back into there. So 46 minus 32 is 14. And then I'll add that 14 into my protein, and that'll give me 88. So I like that a little bit better, 400, 88, 61. But that's just, again, this is a way that you can manipulate your athletes. Well, okay, that's cool, you did this. Well, what if this person starts gaining a lot of weight? Well, we need to adjust something here. Whether that means we cut back the carbs and put it back into protein, or whether we cut back the protein and put it more back into the carbs, so we can always adjust. So that's why dietary, you know, input is always very important. Okay, so what is it that we're looking for? Well, you know, in terms of weight loss, you know, we're always under this impression that we have to lose 1 to 2 pounds a week, but that's not really the case. You know, if a person is larger, then they're going to lose they could have potential to lose a little bit more in a week. But again, we really want, I think that I want this right here. I want slow weight loss. You know, I don't want, especially if it's an athlete, I don't want weight dropping off really quickly, because performance declines that much quicker when you have that process there, when you drop weight too quickly. So again, you know, weight loss reasons, you know, you want to be able to like it says here, I definitely agree with this. Use your activity to be able to decrease your the amount of calories that you're getting in a day. So you can eat your calories that you're scheduled to, or eat the right macronutrient quantity that you need to, but use your energy as the deficit, and that will help. Okay, so I mean, let's just say you're a bigger we'll say a bigger baseball player. They may need anywhere between 3,500 and 4,000 calories a day, for example. We'll just say they expend 500. Well, instead of increasing their calories to offset the 500 calories they lost, just let that be their deficit, and they'll naturally keep their weight either in maintenance or maybe lose just a little bit, which won't decrease performance. On the other hand, for weight gain, yeah, you don't want to go too crazy and go overboard. So I definitely agree that 500 calories more a day is going to help with that, and that won't be too much where it'll start to cause problems, in terms of like the wrong type of weight gain. Okay, so and then they give you some tips down here below, which are pretty straightforward. So in terms of like food choices, though, when we're doing that, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Everything here needs to be nutrient dense. You know, fruits and vegetables, low processed foods, whole grains, beans, legumes, lower fat containing meats. But that's the other thing too is it doesn't mean you just totally get rid of like things like red meat that might carry around a little bit more fat. You don't always have just poultry like chicken, boneless, skinless chicken breast. It's okay to get some of that good fat from like a chicken quarter or something like that. That carry the meat that contains a little bit more fat in it, but that's for the right time. Okay, but yeah, we want to make sure nutrient dense, and we want to try to avoid those that are more energy dense or lower nutrient density, like sugars, alcohols, and then like sugars and alcohols that can really affect that in that way. Okay, and then more highly processed foods. Okay, and this I mean for nutrient dense food examples, what they're saying here is that skim milk is more nutrient dense because it's got more of what is expected versus whole milk. Now, me personally, milk you can take it or leave it, but just understand that yeah, you're getting more nutrients for what it is that it's really available to you. Now, is it really that much of a difference? No. I think a lot of it, what they're talking, a lot of times when you talk about nutrient density, yeah, your energy is down, but that's because there's no fat, but it's more processed. So, you know, you take this or leave it, but I just think it's a really bad example. So, then of course we have the issue and the challenge of making sure that people make the right food choices. Now, if you look at, I can't see some of these other ones here, but I mean, the choices that are here are really not that great. You're talking about pretty much majority like negative fast food items. That one that's probably next to Arby's is probably going to be the best bet because it looks like they might be actually cooking something there. So, but anyway, just have to understand that things that aren't good for us are usually the things that taste really good. So it's just making sure that we make the right choices to be able to do what we got to do. So I mean, really, what are they saying here? If we were to eat in this fashion, just say that you were scheduled to eat, 2,400 calories. We're in the highlighted area. They're saying, approximately 3 cups of veggies, 2 cups of fruit, 8 ounces of grains, 3 cups of dairy, 6.5 ounces of protein, and then 31 grams of some oil base. All right. And then you have like 350 calories that are discretionary. So the more calories you're scheduled to eat, the more discretionaries you might get. Because if you look at the bottom here, it does kind of go up because you have a lot more calories. You're going to have a little bit more of a disparity. So again, try to avoid using these calories down here in a negative way. Okay. But again, I still think, protein foods, they're saying 5.5 ounces. I mean, that's really not a lot of protein. Then again, 1,600 calories is not a lot but that's probably a smaller person. So, Just kind of some things to think about. But you can see here, just how things, as you increase in weight, or not weight, but increase in calorie amount, you're increasing the weight or the amount of the food that you're eating. Then they give you these like 1 day diets. Now, what I'd really like you to do is kind of look at this with a critical eye. I'm not going to go through it, but kind of look through it and be like, really? Like, what are they doing there? Like, why are they adding that? So you kind of can pick through this and be like, yeah, like for me, the first thing I see is 1 tablespoon of margarine. That's the first thing I see. So I'm just like, okay, never mind. But you get the idea, okay? And of course, this is supposedly a healthy eating pattern for someone in the United States. It's like, okay, so yeah, I mean, like 2 whole wheat dinner rolls, okay. So it doesn't mean I'm against carbs, but what are we really trying to achieve here? When it gets into fluid and food, here, before we start exercising or competing, well, what is the goal? Well, we want to get proper energy for that activity that we're going to be doing. Now, they say particularly carbohydrates. The reason why you don't want to start stuffing down protein and fat is because it takes so long to digest, which we've hit on in previous classes. You want to be able to delay fatigue as much as possible, especially if it's going to be prolonged. You want to avoid hypohydration or excessive dehydration. So we talked about the difference between the two terms and how we use dehydration in the wrong manner. Okay, we want to minimize gastrointestinal distress. That's exactly what I was talking about with fat and proteins that just take so long to digest. It just sits there and it doesn't feel good for a person. And then obviously you don't want to go into a competition hungry, so it's going to be able to satisfy that hunger. Okay, what are the recommendations? About 1 to 4 hours prior, you're going to have anywhere between 1 to 4 grams per kilogram of carbohydrate. Okay, um, so that's really how you can kind of work that. In terms of fluid, we've talked about that last week, but about 5 to 10 milliliters per kilogram 2 to 4 hours before. That's the same. And then if you're hypohydrated 2 hours before, add an additional 3 to 5 milliliters per kilogram. And then the sodium should be able from the foods that you're eating should be able to be beneficial to that. Or you can add in a little bit of sports drink if you need to, especially for more particularly for prolonged activity. Okay, but then I definitely agree with this here, trial and error. Okay, you got to be able to feel it out for each person and see how they feel. You don't want them to be too slushy in the stomach, and that's really what it comes down to. All right, they give you an example here, but again, I mean, I don't know, like 12 ounces of OJ with a bagel and some cream cheese and a carb drink. I just, that's a tough one for me. I think there's better choices that we can make with this, and then it won't make you feel so full. You'll still have it'll still feel lighter in the stomach. So, and the reason why though is because when we look at everything here, what you can see is again in the front part of this. Okay, follow the mouse over here on the left. As you get into these early stages, well, what is it that we're predominantly using for fuel source? Is muscle glycogen and then muscle triglycerides, depending upon what you're, especially, and this is for a marathon. So you're tapping into your muscle stores pretty quickly and you're tapping into your muscle triglycerides or your muscle fats, with, plasma fatty, oh my God, free fatty acids. I can't talk. All right. So those are the 3 major ones. Now, as it goes on longer and you start getting into increased time frames, you can see here the extended amount of time, you start tapping into more blood glucose that's free floating throughout the blood. So you got glucose that's hanging out in there that's ready to be pulled in and used. And then you're also going to tap into your free fatty acids that are also available within the blood as well. Okay. And you can see there's a big transition because you're starting to run super low on muscle glycogen down here. And then you're also, starting to, decrease the amount of muscle fat storage that you have as well. Okay, so that's just a gigantic switch when it comes to your marathon. During exercise, there's some goals here, and I think that they're a little bit tougher because you got to avoid that uncomfortable feeling. So, what you got to do, provide energy, and then particularly carbohydrates, especially for longer duration. It's going to help delay fatigue. Again, it's going to help with preventing hypohydration, and again, excessive dehydration. It'll prevent you from over consuming too much fluid. Okay. It'll also make you be able to balance out your electrolytes. It'll also, and that's where that sodium comes in. And then also, it's a way to minimize GI distress, which can also be critical for that part too. So yeah, you don't want to end up like this guy right here in the middle. So Ed and Rich kind of don't really particularly want to be in this situation, because this dude hit the wall. Well, remember, hitting the wall is where you are making that conversion from, majority glycogen and that's available within the liver and the muscle, and you're running out of those stores, so the body wants to naturally start switching to predominantly triglycerides or fat. Okay, so this, I don't know, this guy right here, he's just kind of like, yep, his wall's been hit and he's kind of been run over by whatever was behind him. So and then, one of the things that you want to make sure of is that you're limited on how much carbohydrates that you have. So you got to be able to find a way to maybe potentially get some intake in there to help avoid that from occurring. So, and it says here, and we kind of hit on this too previously, as endurance exercise continues, higher percentages are derived from blood glucose. And that goes back to this slide right here. Okay, so you're now moving away from this muscle glycogen that was stored in the muscle, and you're moving, as you get longer and farther along, you're moving more toward freely available glucose within the blood. Okay, but again, why is this a problem? Because at some point here, you're going to develop low blood glucose, and the liver cannot convert substrates getting back to the liver to convert that into glycogen to then use it as glucose quick enough. So you got to be able to find a way to help with, not running out of carbohydrate stores too soon. Okay. So what is it that you're kind of looking for? They're saying, and for more of a endurance based, 30 to 60 grams per hour. If you're doing like ultra endurance, 90 grams per hour, just because you don't want to run out of stores. We want to be able to use what we're taking in and be able to use it correctly. Then for fluid, we've talked about this we talked about that during the chapter all last week, is that it's got to be customizable for each person based on, like it says here, sweat rate, sweat composition, how long they're going for, what's the clothing, what's the environment. And then that can help with electrolyte imbalances and then hydration balances. Okay. Sodium, they say 1 gram per hour, especially if you're a person, like they say, is a salty sweater. So that, which basically means that you're removing too much salt through sweat. And again, it's going to be trial and error. So you never do this directly before competition. That's one main thing. Okay. That's definitely one. You want to do this during practice, like training wise, so that you can see what happens if you overhydrate, what it does. If you accidentally overhydrate, it doesn't hurt their performance. Well, it does in the moment, but it won't hurt their competition. It'll only hurt the training day. So it'll only ruin one day versus the competition, which is many days of practice and blood, sweat, and tears. So, so after, what are we trying to do? We're trying to provide carbs to resynthesize muscle glycogen to rebuild it, proteins to repair and rebuild, and then you want to rehydrate to get back to euhydration, so normal hydration, get electrolytes balanced, and then avoid GI upsetness or distress. And they give you some basic guidelines here. I've also, I'm not going to test you on the numbers I'm going to tell you, but I mean, depending upon how intense it was, I've heard of anything from, a 3 or 4 to 1 ratio of carbs to protein. That's also, so if they're saying 15 to 25 grams, what you do is you go 3 or 4 to 1. So it could be, for every 15 to 25, you're going to take in 45. If it's 3 to 1, it's going to be 45 to 75. If it's 4 to 1, it's going to be 60 to 100. So it just depends on the person and what they're doing, how long they went for, what their training was like, things like that. All right. As far fluid intake wise, 1.5. We said basically it was anywhere. The rule of thumb was for every kilogram of body weight that you lose, you want to get in about 1.5, so 1.5 liters. Okay, that was basically the rule of thumb there. And then sodium, making sure you get that balance back with your electrolyte, and then your electrolytes balance as well. All right. So, that's kind of there. So we talked about food first, talked about all the good stuff about that. Well, what can we do about things like caffeine or alcohol? Well, we know that caffeine, or what they say is the active ingredient, or methylxanthine is going to be that the primary active ingredient. Is it does it really affect performance? Well, we've seen research that shows that it does affect performance. It can increase it. Now, just understand that specifically like the NCAA, if you're going to work with college athletes, they have this thing where you have to be very aware of how much caffeine that person is having a day, because if they ever had a blood or a pee test, then they're going to basically they could get popped, and that's not good. But it's a really high amount, so that's one of the things that we kind of work against with that, is that we don't really worry about it. So, and so what are we talking about here is, are we looking at things correctly? So, how much caffeine do you take in a day? Do you drink any caffeine? Well, this kind of gives you the idea as to low, moderate, and high intakes. Now, I'll say, myself, I'm a high intake person, so I'm over 400 milligrams per day. But and some of you might not be, some of you might be more than me, but definitely understand that I'm, like I said, I'm in a high intake zone, so I kind of understand that. So, but there's your caffeine content depending upon what you get in a lot of different things. Now, these are rough estimates, but definitely just take a look at them and see, are these things that you technically drink, things like that. Some more, now we're getting into some of the things that, maybe not are the best choice for you. But I mean, like a Mountain Dew is 91 milligrams of caffeine for a 20-ounce bottle. So again, if you have one of those a day, you're not getting enough caffeine that would consider you to be a moderate or a high user. So, obviously with caffeine, it has that addictive quality to it. So obviously alcohol does as well. But, caffeine is considered safe. All right. People do get withdrawals. They usually get nasty headaches, and they get a little moody when they're trying to come off of caffeine, things like that. But what are the side effects? Increased blood pressure at rest and during exercise, increased heart rate, GI distress, and then a lack of ability to fall asleep, so insomnia. Okay. Effects. Studies do not show blood pressure becomes elevated and increases mortality. So by drinking caffeine, you're not necessarily going to end up with high blood pressure. People who have Parkinson's and Alzheimer's have shown to, there is some research that does show that it can help with those two aspects, all right, which are both in nervous system, concerns. Anything over 500 milligrams per day is associated with insomnia, anxiety, irritability, headaches, and GI upsetness. I am not one of those people that's in that boat. I do consume more than 500 milligrams typically per day on most days, but I don't have a hard time sleeping. I'm not anxious. I'm not irritable. Headaches, well, yeah, but I don't think that the headaches usually headaches are because of the way that I sleep, or if I'm stressed out from work or something, but or home life or whatever. So, and then like it says here, a moderate caffeine intake does not affect an athlete's hydration or electrolyte status, which was always the assumption was that you have this diuretic effect, but that's also not key. That's also not an important aspect, because the caffeine is not going to make you void as much pee as you think that it would. Okay. So as a performance enhancer, anywhere between 2 to 3 milligrams per kilogram. So if you weigh 100 kilograms, what it says is that it can help you anywhere. If you weigh 100 kilograms, it's about 2 to 300 milligrams that you can work with. But again, it's appropriately timed. That's really more about it than anything else. Also, with weight loss, by itself, it does not result in fat or weight loss, but there has been some studies that have been kind of conclusive, but again, not enough of them to say this is the way that it's supposed to be. Okay. but it does, like it says here, it enhances the effect of ephedrine. So and with the increased ability of ephedrine, that's where weight loss can sometimes happen as well. So with alcohol, what are we talking about? Well, again, half an ounce of ethanol. So what we're talking about, ethanol, spirits, hard alcohol, that's a shot. 5 ounces of wine, 12 ounces of beer, 8 to 9 ounces of malt liquor. So that could be anything, that it's technically is labeled malt. So like a lot of times, sometimes what is it, like hard lemonade, things like that. I think those are considered malt beverages, all right, but you have to look on them. And then there's your 1.5 ounces of hard liquor, so again, a shot. Those are part of that. And then, what is moderate consumption? I hate the word moderation, but, whatever it is, what it is. 1 drink per day for women, 2 drinks per day for men. And there's 7 kcals per gram. So we know that with alcohol, it's empty calories. So there's no nutrient benefit to anything with that. Okay. Let's see. But again, the moderation part of it, yeah, if you don't have to drink, then don't drink. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean you have to. And there has been some research that, has come out that's shown that by doing that does not mean it's going to be heart healthy or anything like that. It's not guaranteed. Okay. Low to moderate doses of alcohol do not improve performance. Although I did see something about 5 or 6 years ago, I remember that they did a study and they used alcohol as like a performance enhancer, and it showed that it improved some parameter, and people were like, really? Like, this is awesome, but it wasn't enough to make me go, yeah, the risks outweigh the benefits any day. So, high doses of alcohol can lead to fluid imbalances. It can affect vitamin and mineral content. Then you're going to, like it says here, alcohol does not impair glycogen resynthesis post-exercise. But that's if there's enough carbohydrates. So if there's not enough, that's when we can start having those issues there. Melatonin, serotonin, adrenaline, and vasopressin all are affected by alcohol. Melatonin, serotonin, they can have the opposing effects that what most people want. And then vasopressin, breaking the seal is one of the issues that can come with that. Okay. And, it says it may reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, and that's because of the increase in HDLs, but I would say that there's more risk than reward at that point. All right, and then here there's some, a bunch of different ones here. You can see what's the serving size, what's the kcal amount. All right, so just kind of look at all these and take them in with a grain of salt. So kind of talking about that, then get past the caffeine part of it, which is technically can be used as a supplement, but not the alcohol, obviously. But get into dietary supplements. One of the things that we have to definitely be aware of is that it says here you want to provide as much unbiased scientific information as possible. So you got to do your research on some of these things here, like beta alanine. There's people out there that are pushing beta alanine, but really the performance benefits of taking beta alanine are very minimal, if any. So, improvements in performance are not coming from that. It's probably to do with the fact that it may be a placebo effect because that person's nervous system is impulsing and sending out signals, but it's just like, oh yeah, I feel this tingling, must be working. So they go and work harder. So, but again, it is what it is. So, note, this is here, note that people who sell supplements are not always a source of unbiased information. If you go to a supplement, salesperson, typically they're going to push it. If I endorsed the supplement, I would endorse the supplement because I agreed in what it can do, not because of the fact that I'm trying to sell it. I would sell it because of the fact that I agree with what it does. And I would only pick ones that I would want to endorse via the scientific background behind what I know about it. Okay. There are potential side effects depending upon what it is. And then, like it says here, guide but don't decide. So it's not your choice to make for somebody else. Question is, do you use vitamin and mineral supplements? Well, again, it depends on if you have, to me, I think that if you are lacking some vitamin or mineral in your diet, or for example, if someone is clinically diagnosed with low vitamin D, Well, and they should supplement vitamin D if they're low in copper, and because copper you don't really need to have a lot of, but just kind of putting it out there. But if you have low copper count, then ultimately that may cause concerns with vitamin C. It may cause problems with bone, and because of that, that's where it can get a little treacherous, and that maybe you do need to have the small, super small supplement of that. Okay. So it just depends on what it is that you're trying to do. Overloading with it is not going to help. Vitamin C, people assume that if you load up on vitamin C, it's going to help you. Well, that's not 100% guaranteed as well. That is not guaranteed. It doesn't mean your immune system is going to be able to fight off like a cold or the flu or anything like that. And that's what sometimes doctors and actual lay people think. So what do you got to pay attention to? All right, the serving size, the amount, all these things on the left there, percentage of daily value, ingredient list, so on and so forth. But if we blow this picture up a little bit, just so you can kind of see what we're looking at here. When you look at this looks to me like it's one gel cap, and it's got 100% of almost everything except for biotin. Okay, well, this leads me to believe this is very similar to maybe like a multi. But I mean, really, if you have a proper diet, taking this supplement is not going to do anything. But sometimes vitamins and minerals do lack, but this can help if you have an issue with something else, because typically a lot of this stuff, a lot of these ingredients, these amounts of vitamins and minerals content will probably most likely end up being excreted out through urine. Okay, so that can sometimes be a concern there. Protein supplementation, yeah, if you're not getting enough protein from food. Probiotics, if you're not getting, if you're not eating the right food quality or content, what that can do is it can affect the gut. Okay, but I think probiotics are okay. And if you've been on an antibiotic, just say that you were on an antibiotic for some sort of illness or whatever, it's okay to supplement with a probiotic, because those antibiotics basically, they want to wipe out even good bacteria, because they don't basically they don't play favorites. It's just they take out all of it. So getting a probiotic after an antibiotic can actually help to get restoring that gut, so that you can have a proper uptake of all vitamins, minerals, macros within the small intestines. Okay, protein supplementation. I mean, you could take it or leave it. I use it because I feel like trying to consume a certain amount of protein on some days can sometimes be challenging. So having like a liquid protein supplement is okay for me. And I do agree, because this is it right here. It's convenient. Okay. So that's one of the factors as to why I do. And I'm sure you probably have your own if you do as well. All right. Now, the one thing to be aware of, though, is like herbals and botanicals. You got to be careful with them, because you got to see what sometimes interactions they can have with other things. Okay. But it is more for health related purposes more than it is performance based. All right. And like it says here, most are more drug like than food like. So unlike a supplement, which is more food like, herbals and botanicals are more supposed to be like the alternative for medication. Like garlic, soy, phytochemical supplements, those are going to be more related more to the food stuff. But just be aware of what it is. Like I said, if you're on a medication, you got to make sure you're also paying attention to what you're taking in as an herbal, because it can have a bad interaction. So you got to be very careful of that. All right. And then lastly, just to kind of sum everything up, what they're saying here is that you have specific workout periodizations. Well, your nutrition periodization should match that depending upon what you're doing for that moment. All right. So if that means you have to supplement, if that means that you have to get the right food in some way, ultimately, does it mean you have to have 4, 5, 6 meals a day? Does it mean you have to have 7 or 8 meals a day? How is it that you're going to be able to do that? Well, that's really what it comes down to. So just like working out, you got to figure out what your nutrition periodization is going to look like to match throughout the day. Okay. So, it's got to kind of counterbalance itself. Whatever you're working out for, you want to eat, definitely eat around those meals and pay attention to that. So, This is chapter 10, pretty straightforward, nothing too crazy in terminology wise. You guys know all this terminology from previous classes and in this class, so I think you should be all set and good to go. So we'll be talking to you again for chapter 12 because we're not going to be doing chapter 11. All right, have a good one.